Hey everybody, Mike with Games Played Badly, and it's been a minute. I apologize about the video shooting schedule, but we do have a brand new interview for you today. And yes, before you say anything, I did dye my beard. It is for a Halloween costume, and it is permanent. I mean, for now, until it's permanent. So this is my look. Anyway, today on Session Zero, I have Alex, and he has created a game, and it's based on a Charles Dickens novel called A Christmas Carol. It is all about the possibility of redemption. In that context, you're visited by spirits, and at the end of the game, are you redeemed or not? So it's very, very interesting. It was a great interview, and I can't wait for you to meet Alex. That interview starts now. Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very nice to meet you, Mike.
It's a pleasure having you on. Your project in particular is something that really touches my heart because it is based on one of my favorite stories of all time, Charles Dickens' classic. People know it by Scrooged or Christmas Carol or whatever you'd like to call it. But this is an iteration of a game based on that. Why don't you tell me more about that?
Sure. Um, if I can do a little bit of background,
Sure.
I've written a couple of games using where I use playing cards to control the emotional content of scenes in the
Mhm.
story games. Um, Love and Barbed Wire was love letters in World War One, and the Cool and Courage is women spies in World War Two France. And a friend of mine said, "Could you use that system to do something with Scrooge?" And I sat and had to I thought, actually, I think I can. But it'd be nice to broaden it. So rather than just deal with greed that Scrooge has, we could look at all the seven deadly sins.
Mhm.
And you've got the story of Scrooge has a happy ending because Scrooge realizes the damage that his attitude is doing to people around him. And he changes and he has a fabulous future. If I want a game for it, then perhaps there's going to be the possibility that somebody doesn't change. Um, and this all comes together in the game Expect Three Visitors. And it's taken from that kind of famous line from
Mhm.
Scrooge.
Sure.
Um, so that's kind of the very bare bones behind it. Would you like me to dip into the structure of the game and how it works?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from my standpoint, I obviously love the story. I love the aspect of that redemption. But you bring up a good point. What happens when someone doesn't redeem themselves?
Mhm.
So why don't you explain a little bit more about how the game mechanics and how that works?
Sure. The uh, the game works best with, say, 3 to 5 players, and each person plays both a spirit and they play a client. And that's what we call the person who's got the problem. And so if you're sitting around a table, I'd play the spirit to the client on my left, and I'd be the client to the spirit on my right.
Hmm.
Um, and the uh, at the up front, people agree which particular problem the client has. Is it going to be envy or gluttony or greed, lust, pride, or sloth, or wrath? Um, and there's something which we do. The rules will talk about. Yeah, being careful how you choose it because we recognise that we're treading on some kind of potentially dangerous ground here, and so we want to make sure that everybody who's playing is happy with where you're going to go with it.
Hmm.
Once you've got this set up, you know where you're going. Um, Everyone has 4 playing cards. So if I might have my 4 cards here, but I don't know where they are at the moment. I keep them face down because we like surprises.
Sure.
Um, we do an establishment scene which illustrates how bad this person is, the horrible impact they have on other people's lives. Um, and go around to do that for each of the clients. And then we have a scene where they meet the first spirit. Um, and we like to, in one thing, we've got somebody from a homeowners association, and he's looking at the CCTV around his area, and he can see a figure walking around. It doesn't recognize them. They're static. They step out the screen and they say, your soul is in danger. Come with me. In other cases, it's somebody who's an influencer who's on TikTok all the time. But they keep on seeing somebody kind of photobombing them. And then the person appears beside them and says, your soul is in danger. Come with me. And that's kind of kicks off the first of the 3 visions. And so for each vision, I draw my first card. I've got my first one. Oh, spade. The card gives the spirit an idea of the emotional tenor that they want to frame a scene with. So this would be a scene in the past. And because it's a spade, it's going to be a scene about loss. So, and that's often normally somebody who's dying. In one play test, we had somebody who's suffering from gluttony. And gluttony is not just about food, it's really about not knowing when to stop.
Access.
Yeah. And so this was an older person, and they were hoarding. Their house was just stuffed full of things. And the spirit framed the scene. He said, it's in a hospital room, and it's about 8 years ago. And we see you 8 years ago, and your wife is in bed and she's dying. And then 2 of the other players play out that scene and have a conversation. And the spirit will pause occasionally and say, what did you think of that? How are you feeling at this moment? So you've got the spirit and the client watching the scene played by other people. You can kind of pause it and have that bit of conversation that in the book Scrooge had with the spirit. And when he gets to the right moment, you say, okay, end the scene there. And in that particular example, this was the elderly, the man saw his wife dying, and she was saying, you must, start afresh, keep on going. But we could see that this was what started him hoarding, because he couldn't let go. He didn't let go of anything, and it turned into, he just kept everything. So that way we kind of frame a scene. Now, if I'd have got, if my card I'd drawn had been the heart, then actually it's a scene of love, something really kind and nice. And if you remember in the story of Scrooge, the spirit takes him back to the past, and he sees himself in the boarding school alone at Christmas time. And then his younger sister bounces in and says, oh, Scrooge, Father's changed his mind. You can come home to have Christmas with us. So that's an example of a happy scene that's going on. Everyone goes around the table. You do your scenes from the past. And then, okay, now it's the scene of the present. Draw another card and think, oh, maybe that's a club. So a club is a scene where there's harm being caused by the thing that you're doing. There's a play test where there is somebody, influencer, who's pride. And in this scene, it was cutting between the bedrooms of teenage children, scrolling on a phone and saying, oh, I'm too fat. Oh, I'm not pretty. Oh, I don't have friends. Spirit's saying, you can see how what you're doing is influencing these children. What do you think? And the client said, well, they are fat, and that one isn't pretty. And as you play, the client gets to decide how they want to react. Are they going to be sympathetic and start being moved by what they see? Or are they going to be really hard-nosed about it? And then you go around and you do a scene for the future. And once those are all complete, everyone has one card left in their hand. And that's the judgment. And you can kind of think about it, you think, which client do you want to donate your cards to? Who do you think should be redeemed? You can't give it to your client. You've got to give it to somebody else's client. So why it's 2-player games, you have to have special rules for this. Once you've thought about it, everyone just makes their donation at the same time, and we see how many cards are in somebody's hands. Any client who has 0 cards ends really badly for them. It's and we have an epilogue, and the epilogue describes what happens next.
Oh my goodness.
So it might be that it ends really badly, and you describe how things go badly. I was playing a corporate raider. Nobody saved him. And, oh, actually, no, a better one was the cat lady. And she ended really badly for her. And she never reconciled with her mother,
Mm.
grew old with cats, tripped on a cat toy, fell down the stairs and died,
Oh my
and,
god.
then was eaten by her cats. It was, it was a horrible, horrible ending. It might be that you've got one card, but the card you've got is a black card, either suit, and then is a, well, they're not redeemed, but there's a ray of hope.
Hmm.
So the epilogue explained how they carry on doing their bad things, but perhaps sometimes they had a pang of conscience about it, and you
Hmm.
thought maybe they could change. Um, if you've got one card and it's a red card, then they're redeemed, but at a price.
Hmm.
Uh, and an example of this was there's somebody where we played a game where somebody was a male influencer, um, and he was redeemed. He had a happy family life with his children, with his daughter growing up, but he moved away to the boondocks, living out in a cabin out in the mountains, away from the internet.
Hmm.
He had to cut himself off from that life he'd once had, but now he had his life with his family.
Mhm.
And anybody who ends up with two cards in the hand at whatever suit, they have the Albert Finney Scrooge ending. Everyone is singing and dancing, they're transformed, and their life is wonderful. And
That's
that's how the
great.
game plays.
Yeah, I'd like that. I mean, because it's improvisation for the table. Sounds like it could be absolutely heartbreaking. But it is one of those things where it gets everyone involved. I mean, I could imagine a two-player game that would be a little bit more difficult because you don't have the two other actors that act out the scene for
Yeah.
you, type thing. But yeah, I like it. I like the idea of it.
I'm,
Now
I'm
how
doing
about
variant rules at the moment for two-player games, for a solo journaling version,
okay.
and for to make it appropriate for children.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so if somebody wanted to play the game with kids, kind of 8 to 14 years old, you'd
Mhm.
frame things differently. And so I'm working on that as well at the moment.
Very good, very good. So this is kickstarting right now, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So
We're halfway through the Kickstarter. There's a week and a half to go as of the time we're recording this.
mhm.
We've met my primary goal. Hurrah. Um, I've got a stretch goal to enable me to hire an artist to do some caricature work to give me some better internal art. Um, so I've got enough to pay for my editor and layout, which is fab, but there's the opportunity to make it that little bit better.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that it'll draw some people in and encourage them that this is an exciting thing to have a go at.
Absolutely. So now from the standpoint of the Christmas Carol, things like that, were you a big fan of that before this whole thing started?
Um, I was a medium fan of it. I didn't. My brother watches it every year. I don't watch it every year, but every 2 or 3 years I'd watch it, and I like those. I like it as a story, and I've also liked It's a Wonderful Life.
Mhm.
Similar sort of thing. Uh, where there's somebody who thinks that they've got no chance, an angel comes along and helps them find redemption. So there's kind of a number of things that talk about this kind of pattern. And one of the things that appealed to me was the idea that there is a chance for redemption.
Mhm.
The first ever playtest we had, one of the people, with permission from everybody else at the table, he played somebody who was facing wrath, and he was a horrible racist.
Oh my.
But he was the one who was completely redeemed at the end. His life was transformed. And as one of the other players said, I wanted to think that it was possible for even somebody like that to be changed.
Mhm.
And sometimes I feel we live in a world where everybody wants everything to be black and white.
Mhm.
And if somebody's stumbled, then that's them forever.
Sure.
But I like to believe in a world where people can change.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an important lesson. And through playing these games, you're actually acting out various things that maybe people are facing.
Yes.
It may be a caricature of their own life or somebody else's, who knows? But so
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
One of the taglines of my games is that simple rules, complex feelings. 'Cause the idea is that you could explain the rules in 5 minutes, but one of my friends said to me, "Have you written another game to make people cry?" Um, it's it's kind of my genre at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, you could get, every game should come with a box of Kleenex.
Yes, there's a friend of mine said you ought to have that as one of your stretch goals. Uh,
And a therapy session afterward, but
yes.
that should be a sequel to this game,
Oh
Therapy.
gosh.
Yeah, Therapy the game.
Yes, I actually know of a really good game about therapy. Is it okay if I just mention that to you?
Sure, sure.
Um, there's an anthology of games called Seven Wonders, um, published by Pelgrane Press, and it's seven women writers. And one of the games is it's four people and they're in therapy. And the reason why they're in therapy is because when they were kind of in their early teens, they went through a wardrobe into a magical land, but it ended up screwing them up. And the game is about the therapy, and as part of that therapy, they're finding out about the magical land that they went to. Such a fabulous idea.
Yeah. Well, there's actually been a couple, interviews I've done. Black Fisk Publishing did a, game, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was revolving around toxic masculinity. So, there are a
Ah,
lot of games out there that are dealing in a similar genre where it's improvisation, but it's improvisation on an emotional scale.
yeah,
And I think those games are valuable, in a lot of different contexts. They can be a lot of fun too, but there is some serious soul searching in some of these games that, people are
yeah.
playing. So, and I could imagine some of your games probably went that direction as well.
Very much so. Um, the and that's why I do always have a quite a big section at the start about safety, about using
Mhm.
lines and bails, X card, things like that, because um, we we play games to have fun, um, but yeah, we don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So, yeah, it's great to check in and say, "Are we all still okay with this?" Yeah, great. Um,
Yeah.
uh, the people I play with a group of people largely who will say, "Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, let's turn the knife here." Um, I, I yeah,
Mm, you
one
look
of
like a
those that
bunch of
is
sadists.
well, not for stages, but they can see the way that a story could go.
Sure.
Um, so in a game of uh, Cool and Lonely Courage, there have been several scenes. Somebody's been working with a baker. This baker is lovely, he's kind, he's friendly, he's fatherly. And it gets to the scene where they're captured and they draw a spade. And they kind of, we all look at them and they look at us and say, "Oh, I know what's happening. I know who's going to die in this scene." And we're thinking, "No, Pierre."
I'm excited for the Kickstarter. I'm glad that it's, funded, and for anybody who wants to check out this game, and if you're a fan of this type of game, it
Mm,
sounds like you've written several of them. So check out your back catalog. But I, will have a link down to the Kickstarter, below, and you can check that out. Obviously, you can late pledge if you miss it, but I will have this up hopefully while the Kickstarter is still going. And Alex, I appreciate you coming on. I wish you the best of luck. And if anyone's interested, look down below for all the information.
Thanks very much, Mike. And I really appreciate what you're doing with this channel in helping some of the smaller indie creators to get out there and to talk about the stuff that they love. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to be able to talk to smaller creators who have amazing ideas and, put the spotlight on them for a change. Not everyone's Wizards of the Coast and, all these other big guys. So, I appreciate you appreciating it. That's not confusing.
Works for me, sir.